Welcome to the business interview here on France 24. I'm Markus Karlsson. Is this Africa's time in the global economy? Well, in this show, we're speaking to an economist who says the answer to that question is a resounding yes. Charles Robertson works for the investment bank Renaissance Capital, and he is the lead author of a book called The Fastest Billion. The book says more wealth has been created in Africa in the past 10 years than ever before in the continent's history. It forecasts that Africa could see the same explosive growth that Asian countries displayed in the 1980s and 1990s. Charles Robertson joins us now from London to tell us more. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Now, this book, it was published by your employer, Renaissance Capital. A lot of people are probably surprised to hear an investment bank publishing a book. What's the message you want to send here?
Well, firstly, we a bit quicker than the publishing houses. So if there's any errors in the book, that might be one reason. The reason we've done the book is we've been operating very successfully across Africa for the last 6 or 7 years. And yet we still find that people don't see the change that's happened. Many people from the outside still get their news coloured by the stories of coups and famine. They're not seeing the progress, and we felt that we needed to get something out there in a much more comprehensive way, covering everything from telecoms to democracy to the decrease in violence and conflict to the improvements on health, and to try and get it all into one report. It turned out to be a book.
Now, the cynics, they would probably say that this book is self-serving, seeing that if your bank gets more business, or rather, if Africa gets more business, your bank gets more business as well.
Oh, well, hopefully we get a bit more business. But this is what we're arguing here, and the case we're making is that the transformation's already been happening for 10, 12 years. It's been phenomenal growth, 5.5%, 6% growth. Phenomenal improvements in things like child mortality and HIV, malaria. It's all getting better. It's just people aren't aware of that. And what we're saying is that it looks uncannily similar to what we have already seen. In fact, we're arguing that Africa has already been following India for 30 years. India in itself is following the rest of developing Asia. So we can draw out what we think is a very plausible, much more reliable, we hope, forecast for the next 30, 35 years for where Africa's going. And that's going to be of use to governments trying to plan airport expansion or infrastructure developments, as well as investors, as well as, I think, telling people who know Africa well just what to expect in the coming decades.
Now, you say that African GDP will go from $2 trillion to $29 trillion in the next few decades. So that's a very optimistic forecast. Are there no downside risks in your view?
That's only assuming it's 2 trillion in today's money to 29 trillion in today's money by 2050, which will be bigger than Europe and America put together. Today, I'm still hoping, very much hoping, that Europe and America still do grow in the next 30, 40 years. But it's just trying to give some sense of how big it will be. And that is just saying that Africa will continue to copy, as they've been doing for 30 years, what's happened in India. A lot of people are actually coming back to me and saying we're too pessimistic. It's much easier to grow ever faster than it used to be in the 70s or 80s. In the 70s or 80s, we depended on manufacturing to be able to go to the next level on growth. Now, with the internet, with mobile phones, and that revolution's been amazing in Africa, perhaps we don't have to be as slow as India or China have been. Perhaps it'll be faster. What does it require? It requires governments to continue investing, and that's exactly what they've begun to do in the last few years. And it becomes self-fulfilling. So with growth comes more democracy. With more democracy becomes politicians giving what their voters need, better education for the children. That then helps the next stage of growth. So if you saw a conflict, that will hold back some countries. And we have no doubt that there will be some winners and some losers over the next 40 years.
Now, recently, South Africa has been hit by a series of strikes in the mining sector and deadly protests as well. Do you think that those kind of situation and images will weigh on Africa's image as an investment destination? Isn't the landscape dotted with these types of landmines?
I mean, you're absolutely right, and that sort of image is exactly what many people see. And South Africa, I have to say, isn't going to be one of the strongest growing economies. We're much more hopeful about Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, possibly even Cote d'Ivoire, which is doing well now, or doing better in the last 6 months. But South Africa is almost too rich to grow fast. But these problems that you get in South Africa, but also in other countries, are exactly what you've had elsewhere. If you took an image of the UK or France in the middle of the 19th century, when our income levels were very low, you'd have had a lot to be very worried about as well. And we saw the same in India 20 years ago, when people didn't recognise just how explosive the growth was going to be. There was lots of reasons to be pessimistic about India in 1990, lots of reasons to be pessimistic still today, in fact, about India. And yet what we've seen throughout history is countries, once they get the growth bug right, once they start that story, it becomes a story that runs for decades.
Now, you say in the book that democratization is an inevitable march, that Africa will become more democratic and transparent. That seems like a very bold statement.
We've done a huge data crunch. It's becoming easier and easier to forecast politics through quantitative methods. I mean, a lot of people saw Nate Silver get the US presidential election exactly right, through using quants. And that's what we've done here. We've taken 7,000 data points of political history globally, and we know certain things. That democracies are very fragile at very low income levels. Democracy is not the most important priority when you're trying to feed your family. But when the middle class grows, when income levels are about $6,000 per capita GDP, the middle class then goes on the streets and demands democracy. We saw it in Tunisia just last year, and that created a wave across North Africa and the Middle East. Above $10,000, there's no case in history ever of democracy dying, which is quite reassuring. People worry sometimes about Greece. There's no need to worry about Greece. It's far too rich, $27,000 per capita GDP. And so what we can say in Africa is you take this growth path, you assume it's similar to India, no better, but maybe it will be better, but we're assuming no better. You can see then when democratization is going to happen. In Morocco, I would guarantee it within 10 years.
Now, if we stay on that relationship between ordinary people and the elites, some people in Africa have become very, very rich in recent years, in Nigeria, for instance. But do you think that this wealth will be evenly distributed? Will ordinary Africans see their lives improving as well?
Well, yes. Yes to the second part of the question, but first, no. Inequality is sadly one of those things that's part of development. When you go from subsistence farming, as we did in Western Europe in 1800, we go to the slums of cities, and our income goes up a little. We are better off. We're better off than we are trying to subsist on farming when the crop may fail and we may have a famine. But we're not much better off. Inequality does happen with development. But we are seeing proof that people are better off. Education levels have dramatically improved across Africa. The malaria deaths are down by 27% since the peak in Africa. I think that's a very clear sign that we are seeing benefit for everybody. But no, you're not going to get wealth equality. They tried that, and it was called communism. It didn't work as well as people hoped.
Now, in the book, you also note several times that there's been impressive growth in the mobile phone sector in Africa. What other sectors should we be watching, in your opinion?
I just was in Kenya 10 days ago. They have some amazing IT projects underway. They've brought in the broadband internet across the country. One of their companies, Med Africa, has just won the App of the Year from Ericsson globally, the best in the world. You're getting IT graduates coming out in Kenya now, which they think is going to be an East African, what do they call it, Silicon Savannah. In West Africa, we talk a lot about consumer stocks, the retail sector. You've got South African companies saying growth in South Africa is not going to be very exciting in the next 20, 30 years. Where is the expansion? It's in Nigeria growing at 7% a year for the last 10, and we think even faster for the next 20 or 30. So consumer, retail, banking we are stuffed full of debt in the West, particularly here in the UK. In Africa, the debt levels we have in the UK of 200% of GDP. In most of sub-Sahara, it's 10 or 20%. You've got huge growth in the banking sector as well.
All right. With that, we're going to have to wrap it up there. Thanks very much indeed, Charles Robertson from Renaissance Capital. And with that, we're also going to wrap up this program. Thank you for watching. And remember, you can get in touch with any questions or comments. My Twitter handle is MarkusF24. Bye for now.